dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. It helps us grow, reach more amazing learners like you, and keep bringing you fresh and fun content every week. So don't forget, like, subscribe, and let's keep this journey going strong. Hello, wonderful idiom aficionados, and a very enthusiastic welcome back to another eagerly anticipated episode of Idiom Insights. I'm Emma, your dedicated guide and language enthusiast, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you again, fully prepared and excited to explore the fascinating meanings and intriguing origins of some more common English phrases. It's always such a distinct joy to share this learning adventure with all of you as we navigate the rich, vibrant tapestry of the English language together, uncovering its many layers.
And I'm Jack, your co-host and keen idiom investigator, always here and ready to help shed some significant light on the colorful, often perplexing expressions that make English so wonderfully dynamic, uniquely interesting, and occasionally challenging. It's truly fantastic to be back in the Idiom Insights studio, Emma, and a massive warm hello to all our amazing listeners tuning in from every conceivable corner of the globe. Thank you sincerely for joining us for another engaging session of idiomatic exploration and discovery.
It's always a genuine highlight of my week, Jack. Today, we've carefully curated a particularly interesting selection of 4 incredibly useful and vividly descriptive idioms that you'll undoubtedly encounter in everyday English conversations and media. Understanding these specific phrases will not only significantly boost your comprehension skills, but also provide you with more natural, nuanced, and expressive ways to communicate your own thoughts, feelings, and observations effectively. These selected phrases conveniently cover situations involving high expenses, the granting of complete freedom, the act of taking substantial risks, and a well-known superstitious act, performed for good luck.
A truly excellent and wonderfully varied mix for today's episode, Emma. These are precisely the kinds of idioms that really add significant character, depth, and a touch of local flavor to any conversation. Here are the 4 idioms we'll be thoroughly diving into in this episode of Idiom Insights. First, an idiom for something that is exceptionally, perhaps shockingly, expensive, cost a fortune. Second, a common phrase for giving someone complete and unrestricted freedom to do exactly what they want, free rein. Third, a dramatic expression for risking absolutely everything in a desperate, all-out attempt to achieve notable success, go for broke. And finally, a widely recognized superstitious action or phrase frequently used to avoid bad luck or ensure good fortune continues. Knock on wood?
Those are all absolutely fantastic and incredibly common idioms, Jack. Each one paints a very clear and memorable mental picture and is used with such frequency that understanding them will be incredibly beneficial for our listeners as they engage in English conversations and encounter these exact phrases in books, movies, and online content. Their utility cannot be overstated for learners.
I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly. They're all exceptionally practical and offer valuable insight into cultural nuances as well. And before we meticulously delve into the fascinating intricacies of our very first idiom, a quick and sincere request from both of us here at Idiom Insights. If you're finding these episodes genuinely valuable for your English learning journey, and you truly enjoy our explorations into the world of idioms, please, if you have a moment, consider subscribing or following our podcast on your preferred listening platform.
Yes, indeed. Subscribing is unequivocally the best way to ensure you don't miss any of our future idiom adventures and linguistic discoveries. And if you're feeling particularly supportive and generous today, a simple like or a positive rating on your chosen podcast platform genuinely helps other dedicated English learners discover idiom insights. We are so profoundly grateful for your engagement and continued support. It truly fuels our passion for creating this content and sharing our love for language.
It genuinely makes a massive, tangible difference to us and to the wider community of learners. Thank you all so much for being an integral part of our growing community. Right then, Emma, are you ready and prepared for our first idiom, which already sounds rather expensive and perhaps a little intimidating?
Let's absolutely do it. Our first idiom for this brand new episode of Idiom Insights is cost a fortune.
Cost a fortune. Now, this one seems pretty straightforward on the surface. A fortune, as we know, is a very large, often an enormous amount of money. So if something costs a fortune, it must be extremely expensive. Am I right, Emma?
You've got it exactly right, Jack. The idiom cost a fortune signifies that something is very, very expensive, costing a substantial sum of money. Indeed, as much as a fortune would typically imply in common understanding. It's a very common and effective way to emphasize the remarkably high price of an item, a service, or even an elaborate experience. It often carries a slight sense of awe or shock at the price.
So it's essentially an exaggeration, a hyperbole, used to highlight just how incredibly pricey something is. For instance, if you see a beautiful, glittering diamond necklace displayed in a fancy shop window, you might exclaim, "Wow, that must have cost a fortune." Even if you don't know the exact monetary price, you instinctively assume it's incredibly high and perhaps beyond ordinary means.
Precisely. Or if someone you know purchases a top-of-the-line luxury sports car or a sprawling, magnificent mansion, their friends and acquaintances might naturally comment that it must have cost a fortune. It's frequently used to express surprise, make a strong, emphatic statement about the high cost of something, or even subtly imply a certain level of wealth. It's not usually employed for everyday, inexpensive items, but specifically for things that are notably and significantly expensive, making one gasp a little.
It's a very common and natural way to talk about high prices without necessarily needing to know or state the exact figure. It just effectively conveys very, very expensive indeed. It could be used for things like exclusive designer clothes, extravagant international holidays, major home renovations that transform a space, or even some complex medical procedures if they are unfortunately not covered by insurance and leave one with a hefty bill.
Yes, it's quite versatile in that specific sense. The absolute key is that the speaker perceives the cost as being exceptionally, almost unbelievably high, as if it would genuinely take a vast fortune to afford it. It's often more about the perceived financial impact and the lifestyle it represents than a specific, quantifiable monetary value.
So, if a large corporation spends many millions of dollars on a particularly lavish and widespread advertising campaign, one could quite accurately say that campaign cost a fortune, highlighting the immense resources poured into it.
Exactly. It effectively emphasizes the significant financial outlay and the scale of the investment involved.
Okay, so to cost a fortune means to be very expensive, costing a notably large amount of money. Are you ready to hear Mia and Mark use this idiom in a typical conversation, Emma?
Let's listen in with keen interest. I wonder what expensive item or perhaps elaborate service they might be discussing that would warrant such a description.
Mark, did you see the pictures of Sarah's wedding last weekend? She posted some online. The venue looked absolutely stunning, like something straight out of a fairy tale. It was breathtaking.
Oh, I did manage to see a few of them. That historic castle where they held the reception was truly incredible, so grand and picturesque. And her dress was absolutely beautiful too, all delicate lace and intricate handcrafted details. It must have been a very grand and memorable affair.
It really, really looked it. Everything seemed so incredibly luxurious. The abundance of flowers, the gourmet food, the professional live band. I can only begin to imagine how much detailed planning went into it. And honestly, how much it all must have ultimately cost. A wedding of that scale in a venue as prestigious as that? It must have cost a fortune. There's no other way to describe it.
I was thinking the very same thing. Just the fee for renting a historic castle for an entire day, plus the extensive catering for all those guests, and then the designer wedding dress on top of that. You're completely right. That easily could have cost a fortune, if not more. I sincerely hope they had a wonderful and unforgettable time, but wow, that's a serious, substantial investment for one day.
It certainly is a huge investment. It looked like an absolute dream wedding, the kind many people fantasize about, but definitely one that would require a very, very healthy bank balance to pull off.
That was a perfect and very relatable example. Mia and Mark discuss Sarah's clearly lavish and opulent wedding, understandably speculating that it must have cost a fortune due to the luxurious venue, the exquisite dress, and all the other expensive elements they observed, thereby emphasizing the extremely high price involved.
Exactly so. The idiom very effectively conveyed their shared perception of the wedding as being incredibly expensive, costing a very large sum of money, even without them knowing any of the precise figures or the final bill. It was all about the impression it made.
It's a very common and entirely natural way to express that something is exceptionally pricey, almost beyond normal comprehension for many.
It most certainly is. So, the next time you encounter something that is very, very expensive, something that makes your eyes widen a bit, remember the useful idiom, "It costs a fortune."
And we genuinely love to hear about something you've seen, experienced, or heard about that you think cost a fortune. What was it, and why did it seem so expensive? Share your examples and thoughts in the comments section below this episode. We're always curious.
That's a great idea, Jack. Let's smoothly move on now to our second intriguing idiom in this episode of Idiom Insights. This particular one is all about freedom, control, and letting go.
Our second idiom for today is free rein.
Free rein? This immediately makes me think of horse riding, where reins are, of course, the leather straps used to guide and control a horse. So, if you give a horse free rein, you're essentially letting it go wherever it wants, at its own pace. Is that the core idea behind this idiom, Jack?
You're absolutely on the right track with that imagery, Emma. The idiom free rein, sometimes phrased as a free rein or to give someone free rein, means to grant someone complete and utter freedom to do what they want in a particular situation, to allow them to act without any imposed restrictions, or to let them have full, autonomous control over something. Just like letting the reins of a horse go slack allows it to choose its own path and speed, giving someone free rein means deliberately not imposing limits, controls, or micromanagement on their actions or decisions.
So it's very much about granting someone complete autonomy or unrestricted authority, often implying a significant level of trust. For example, if a manager trusts a particularly talented and reliable employee completely with a critical new project, they might decide to give that employee free rein to develop it as they see fit, without constant supervision, interference, or second guessing.
Precisely. Or in a more domestic setting, if parents allow their artistically inclined child to decorate their own bedroom in absolutely any way they choose, no matter how unconventional or wild it might seem to others, they are effectively giving the child free rein over the design and creative expression. It strongly implies a high degree of trust and a genuine willingness to let someone make their own choices, take the lead, and potentially even make mistakes as part of the learning process.
It sounds like it can be a very positive and empowering thing, allowing for a great deal of creativity, initiative, and personal ownership. But on the other hand, could it also be potentially risky if the person given free rein isn't responsible, experienced, or capable enough to handle that level of freedom wisely?
Yes, that's a very astute and important point to consider. Giving someone free rein can indeed lead to truly great, innovative results if they are skilled, dedicated, and trustworthy. However, if they unfortunately lack sound judgment, relevant expertise, or a sense of responsibility, it could potentially lead to chaos, poor outcomes, or wasted resources precisely because there are no checks, balances, or guiding constraints in place. So it's a power that is often and wisely given when there's a strong, pre-existing belief in the person's ability and integrity.
So, for instance, if a renowned film director is well known for their unique visionary style and consistent track record, a major film studio might decide to give them free rein over all the creative aspects of their next highly anticipated movie, trusting them implicitly to produce something brilliant and original.
Exactly. In that scenario, they are not being micromanaged or constantly questioned. They have full, unadulterated creative control to bring their vision to life.
So to give someone free rein means to allow them complete, unhindered freedom to act or make decisions without restrictions or interference. Are you ready to hear Mia and Mark use this particular idiom now?
Let's definitely listen in. I'm quite curious to find out who is being given such complete freedom in their scenario, and what the context might be.
Mia, I heard through the grapevine that you're leading the design team for the new company branding project. That's a really exciting and highly important initiative for the whole company. How's it all going so far? Any challenges?
It's going really well, Mark. Thanks for asking. And honestly, it's been a truly fantastic and refreshing experience, primarily because senior management has been incredibly supportive and trusting from the outset. They basically told me they trust my vision explicitly and my team's collective expertise implicitly.
That sounds absolutely ideal. So, are they giving you a lot of very specific guidelines and requiring approvals at every single stage? Or are you generally able to be quite creative and autonomous?
That's undoubtedly the best part of it all. They've essentially given us free rein with the entire creative direction. They set out the overall strategic objectives and the allocated budget. Of course, those are the necessary parameters, but in terms of the actual design concepts, the choice of color palettes, the crafting of the core messaging, they've clearly said, show us what you collectively think is best. It's so incredibly liberating and motivating to have that significant level of trust and the freedom to really innovate and push boundaries.
Wow, being given free rein on a major project like that is a huge and unambiguous vote of confidence from the higher-ups. That must surely allow your team to be much more adventurous, explore unconventional ideas, and come up with some truly original and impactful concepts. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you all create.
That dialogue perfectly and clearly illustrates the idiom in action. Mia explained that senior management had commendably given her team free rein over the crucial creative aspects of the new branding project, meaning they had complete freedom to develop their innovative ideas without strict limitations, constant oversight, or unnecessary interference.
Exactly so. The idiom very effectively conveyed the high level of trust and substantial autonomy granted to Mia's team, which in turn allowed them to be truly innovative and take full ownership of the creative direction. It was a very positive and empowering application of the concept.
It's a very common and extremely useful idiom for accurately describing a situation characterized by unrestricted control, autonomy, or freedom of action.
It certainly is. So the next time someone is given complete and unfettered freedom to act or make decisions in a particular area or on a specific project, you can confidently say they have been given free rein.
And we'd be very interested to hear if you've ever been given free rein on a project, big or small. What was it like for you? Did you thrive under that freedom, or did you find it challenging? Share your valuable experiences and insights in the comments below the episode.
That's a wonderful idea, Emma. Let's smoothly transition now to our third compelling idiom in this packed episode of Idiom Insights. This one is all about taking significant, sometimes monumental risks.
Our third idiom for today, which carries a sense of drama, is go for broke.
Go for broke. This immediately sounds like you're risking absolutely everything you possess, possibly even to the precarious point of losing all your money and facing financial ruin. Going broke. What exactly does this rather dramatic idiom mean, Emma?
You're remarkably close to the core meaning jack. To go for broke means to risk everything you have, your money, reputation, resources, or energy, in a desperate, determined, all-out attempt to achieve great success or win something highly coveted. It means to commit all your available resources, unwavering energy, or concentrated effort to a single decisive course of action, knowing full well that if you fail, the consequences could be utterly disastrous. You could indeed go broke or lose everything of value. But conversely, if you succeed, the rewards could be immense and life-changing.
So it's very much about making an extremely risky, high-stakes gamble, essentially putting everything you have on the line for one single chance at a massive win or a significant breakthrough. For example, if a business is steadily failing and has one last final chance to launch a new, potentially revolutionary product that could save it from collapse, the owners might decide to invest all their remaining capital, time, and collective effort into that one product. In doing so, they are unequivocally going for broke.
Precisely. Or consider a high-stakes poker game. If a player decides to bet all their remaining chips on a single hand because they fervently believe it's their only viable chance to win the entire tournament, they are undeniably going for broke. It strongly implies a situation where a cautious, measured approach is no longer a practical or effective option, and therefore a bold, audacious, all-or-nothing strategy is adopted out of necessity or sheer determination.
It certainly sounds like it's often a last-ditch effort, perhaps when you feel you have very little left to lose, or alternatively when the potential reward is so incredibly great and enticing that it fully justifies taking such a massive, potentially life-altering risk. It's undoubtedly a very dramatic and decisive course of action, not for the faint of heart.
Yes, it very often comes at a critical, pivotal juncture in a situation. It's not merely about taking a risk, it's about taking the ultimate, definitive risk, with the clear and sober understanding that it's either going to be a spectacular success or a total, unmitigated failure. There's usually no comfortable middle ground or partial victory when one goes for broke.
So, if an athlete in the very final, crucial moments of a championship game attempts an incredibly difficult and exceedingly risky maneuver that could either decisively win them the game or, conversely, cause them to lose badly and definitively, they are in that moment going for broke.
Exactly. It's that all-in, no holds barred, everything on the line approach to a challenge or opportunity.
So, to go for broke means to risk everything you have in a desperate, fully committed, all-out attempt to achieve great success or a significant victory. Are you ready to hear Mia and Mark use this high-stakes idiom, Emma?
Let's definitely listen in. I'm intrigued to discover what risky venture or bold decision one of them might be considering, discussing, or perhaps witnessing.
Mark, I had a really interesting and somewhat concerning conversation with my cousin David yesterday. You know, he's been diligently working on his independent film project for years now, constantly struggling to get adequate funding.
Oh yes, David, the aspiring filmmaker. He's incredibly passionate and dedicated to his work, isn't he? Is he any closer to actually getting his film made and out into the world?
Well, that's precisely the thing. He told me yesterday that he's decided he simply can't wait for traditional funding sources anymore. The process is too slow and uncertain. He's going to take out a huge personal loan, bravely using his house as collateral, and then invest all his own personal savings to finance the entire film himself. He passionately said it's his ultimate dream project, and he's just completely tired of waiting for others.
Wow, using his own house as collateral and depleting all his personal savings? That's an incredibly, almost breathtakingly risky move. If the film isn't commercially successful or critically acclaimed, he could potentially lose absolutely everything he owns.
I know. I expressed my concerns and told him how incredibly risky it was, but he's absolutely, unshakably determined. He firmly said he believes in this film so much, with every fiber of his being, that he's willing to go for broke. He genuinely feels it's his one big chance to make a significant name for himself as a director, and he's fully prepared to risk it all to achieve that lifelong dream.
Well, that's undeniably a huge, monumental gamble. You certainly have to admire his profound courage and unwavering belief in his creative project, even if it is objectively and incredibly risky. I truly, sincerely hope it pays off spectacularly for him. If he's really going for broke like that, he deserves success for that level of commitment.
That dialogue perfectly and vividly illustrates the idiom. David, the determined filmmaker, made the momentous decision to go for broke by courageously risking all his personal assets, his cherished house and hard-earned savings, in a desperate, fully committed, all-out attempt to finance and successfully make his dream film, being acutely aware of the potentially disastrous consequences of failure.
Exactly so. The idiom powerfully captured the immense, palpable risk involved and the definitive all-or-nothing nature of his courageous decision. It effectively highlighted his profound willingness to stake absolutely everything on achieving his ambitious goal.
It's a very common and highly dramatic idiom for describing such a significant, high-stakes gamble or undertaking.
It most certainly is. So, the next time you see someone risking everything they have in a desperate, valiant attempt to achieve a big, transformative success, remember the potent idiom, go for broke.
And we'd be fascinated to hear if you've ever been tempted to go for broke in your own life. What was the specific situation? Did you go through with it? Share your compelling stories and please let us know whether it paid off in the comments section below this episode. We love hearing about courage and risk.
That's a wonderful and engaging idea, Jack. Now, we've arrived at our fourth and final idiom for this insightful episode of Idiom Insights. This one is a very common superstitious phrase that many people use.
Our final idiom for today's session is knock on wood.
Knock on wood. This is something people often say, and sometimes even physically do by rapping their knuckles on a wooden surface, particularly after mentioning some good fortune they're experiencing or expressing a positive hope for the future. What's the precise meaning and, if known, the origin of this widespread superstition, Jack?
You're absolutely right, Emma. It's an incredibly common superstitious phrase and accompanying action. To knock on wood, or its British English equivalent, touch wood, is a well-established superstitious gesture or phrase used to express a sincere hope that current good luck will continue unabated, or more commonly, to ward off potential bad luck after mentioning something positive that has happened, or making a hopeful statement about the future. People often say the phrase aloud and then physically knock on a nearby piece of wood if available.
So it's essentially a ritualistic way of trying to prevent a positive situation from suddenly turning bad. Almost as if you don't want to jinx your good fortune by speaking about it too openly or confidently. For instance, if someone casually remarks, "I haven't been sick at all this entire winter," they might immediately add, "knock on wood," and perhaps tap a wooden table, sincerely hoping they continue to stay healthy and that their statement doesn't tempt fate.
Precisely. Or if you optimistically say, "I think I'm definitely going to pass my important exam next week," you might instinctively knock on wood to try and ensure that your hopeful prediction comes true and isn't unfortunately spoiled by some unforeseen piece of bad luck or a sudden negative turn of events. The exact origin is somewhat uncertain and debated, but there are several prominent theories. One popular one is that it comes from ancient pagan beliefs that benevolent or protective spirits lived in trees, and therefore knocking on wood was a way to either politely ask for their continued protection or, alternatively, to distract any lurking evil spirits from hearing your good fortune and attempting to ruin it out of jealousy or malice.
That's truly fascinating. So, it's a tradition that seems to be deeply rooted in very old, pre-modern beliefs about luck, spirits, and the unseen forces that might influence human affairs. It's a subtle way of acknowledging good fortune while simultaneously, and perhaps a little anxiously, trying to protect it from changing for the worse. It's almost like saying, "I really hope this good luck continues, and I'm just performing this little harmless ritual just in case to ward off any potential bad luck that might be listening."
Yes, interestingly, even people who don't consider themselves very superstitious at all will often say, "knock on wood," almost out of habit, or perhaps as a lighthearted, culturally ingrained way to express hope or acknowledge a positive turn of events. It's a very deeply ingrained cultural practice in many English-speaking countries and beyond.
So for example, if a business has been doing exceptionally well for several consecutive months, the relieved owner might happily say to a colleague, "Sales have been absolutely fantastic this quarter. Knock on wood," sincerely hoping that this welcome trend of success continues into the future.
Exactly. It's a small, often unconscious gesture intended to preserve good fortune and prevent its reversal.
So, knock on wood, or its counterpart, touch wood, is a widely used superstitious phrase or physical action employed to express hope for continued good luck or to actively ward off potential bad luck, especially after making a positive statement or prediction. Are you ready to hear Mia and Mark use this very common phrase?
Let's certainly listen in. I wonder what specific piece of good fortune one of them is hoping will continue, prompting the use of this superstition.
Mark, I'm so incredibly relieved. My car passed its annual inspection this morning with absolutely no problems at all. I was really quite worried because it's getting quite old now, and I thought there might be some expensive and unexpected repairs needed.
Oh, that's genuinely great news, Mia. It's always a bit of a stressful experience waiting for those inspection results, especially when you have an older car that you rely on. So it's all good and roadworthy for another full year then?
Hopefully, yes. The mechanic said everything looks surprisingly good for its advanced age, and there were no advisories or minor issues noted either, which was a bonus. So it seems like it's still running perfectly, believe it or not. Knock on wood.
Definitely knock on wood for that good fortune. You certainly don't want to tempt fate after getting such unexpectedly good news about an old car. Here's sincerely hoping it gives you another completely trouble-free year on the road.
Me too. I just instinctively tapped my wooden desk for good measure as I said it. I really hope my luck holds out with it for as long as possible.
That dialogue perfectly and naturally illustrates the idiom. Mia, after expressing her considerable relief and acknowledging her good fortune about her old car successfully passing its inspection without any issues, reflexively said, "knock on wood," to articulate her earnest hope that its good condition would continue and to superstitiously ward off any potential future problems or breakdowns.
Exactly so. The idiom and the clearly implied physical action were used in a common, lighthearted way to protect her current run of good luck and express a sincere hope for its continuation into the future. It clearly showed the typical superstitious use of the phrase in everyday conversation.
It's an extremely familiar phrase and gesture for a vast number of people, often used without much conscious thought.
It most certainly is. So, the next time you happen to mention some good fortune you're experiencing or a positive hope you have for the future, you might just find yourself instinctively saying, and perhaps even doing, knock on wood.
And we'd be very interested to hear if you consider yourself superstitious. Do you regularly knock on wood? Or perhaps do you have other personal good luck rituals or charms that you believe in? Share your thoughts, beliefs, and cultural practices in the comments section below this episode. We find these cultural insights fascinating.
We always thoroughly appreciate reading your insightful comments and learning about diverse cultural perspectives. Well, Jack, we've successfully explored 4 more really useful, highly descriptive, and commonly encountered idioms in this engaging episode of Idiom Insights.
We certainly have indeed, Emma. Just to briefly recap for everyone tuning into Idiom Insights today, ensuring these valuable phrases stick, we learned
cost a fortune, which, as we discussed, means something is very, very expensive, requiring a large sum of money.
Free rein, meaning to give someone complete and unrestricted freedom to act or make decisions in a specific context without interference.
Go for broke, a dramatic phrase meaning to risk absolutely everything one has in a desperate, all-out attempt to achieve great success or win something significant.
And knock on wood, a widely recognized superstitious phrase or physical action used to express hope for continued good luck or to actively ward off potential bad luck.
4 more absolutely fantastic and practical additions to your ever-expanding English idiom repertoire. Remember, dear listeners, the very best way to make these, and indeed all, new phrases a natural and fluent part of your vocabulary is to actively listen for them in real-life conversations, movies, podcasts, and written texts, and then to consciously build your confidence by trying to use them yourself in appropriate contexts and situations. Don't be afraid to try.
Absolutely spot on, Emma. Don't be afraid to experiment with them in your speaking and writing. The more you consciously use them, the more comfortable and fluent your English will become, and the more you'll naturally start to sound like a native or highly proficient speaker. Practice truly does make perfect in language learning.
And if you enjoyed learning with us today, and we sincerely hope that you did, please do consider giving this episode of Idiom Insights a like, and if you have a moment, leaving us a positive review on your preferred podcast platform. Your invaluable support significantly helps us reach more dedicated learners around the world and enables us to continue creating this educational content.
And very importantly, make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button for Idiom Insights so you don't miss any of our upcoming future episodes, where we'll diligently continue to unravel the wonderful, sometimes witty, and often perplexing world of English idioms for your learning pleasure.
Thank you all so very much for joining us today. It's truly been a pleasure exploring these fascinating English phrases with you all. We appreciate your time and dedication.
Keep learning, keep listening, keep practicing, and we'll talk to you again next time on Idiom Insights.
Goodbye for now, everyone. Stay curious.
See you later. Happy idiom hunting.